Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm very happy to open this series of talks and workshops on the topic of Ed Tech, which stands for Education Technology. As some of you may know, my name is Anthony, and I'm a trainer, full-time trainer at Business Class. I also work on developing the digital and pedagogical resources, as well as organizing events for trainers. So the subject of my talk today will be Replace, Amplify, Transform, How to Integrate Technology in Your Online Sessions with the PIC RAT. Just a word about this title, Replace, Amplify, Transform. This is actually taken directly out of the PIC RAT, which is the model for technology integration that I will be presenting you today. So just a note for the interaction segment of my presentation. Now, of course, I've asked everybody to put themselves on mute. However, if you do have questions, you can feel free to use the chat box for your questions or comments. Later in the session, there'll be an activity that requires you accepting breakout rooms to work with each other on a task that we'll give you. So I will quickly present the goals of today's presentation. So first of all, my goal for you is to discover the PIC RAT model and to learn what it's about, what you can do with it. To me, it really helped. It really helped me to decide how I was going to use tech tools. So really, that would be the first goal. Would be for you to discover what is the PIC RAT. Secondly, also my goal would be for you to get better use out of technology with your courses. So there's a lot of technology out there, and the question is obviously, what can we do with it? So not merely using the tool as an end to itself, but really seeing what this tool allows it, and really for you to get better use out of it. Lastly, another goal would be to bring more variety to your work. So being able to vary activities and move out of the routine that we can sometimes get inadvertently stuck in, where we kind of repeat the same types of tools, same types of activities, use the same type of tools, and that can become redundant for us and maybe even boring for us. So this is also to show you the variety of tools, and I think that this model will very much help you do that. So first, I'm going to explain what the PIC RAT model is. This is my plan. I'll explain to you what the PIC RAT model is. I'll talk about the benefits of the PIC RAT model, why I think that it's useful. I will give you some examples, specific examples. I think that will help you see really what you can do with it. And finally, we will do an exercise to map out the different tools, which I'll let you do in small groups. Let's start with a quick question that I'd like you to answer. So in your opinion, what makes a session fun and interesting? Okay, think about it. What makes a session fun and interesting? And when you have some ideas, go right ahead and send them in the chat. Sorry, I've logged out of this, but so take a minute to do that. So I see that, okay, lots of involvement from students. Some people are saying lots of involvements for students. Games, yeah, changing rhythm, exercises, drills, role plays, yeah, conversation, role play games, different skills, small talks and chunks, yeah. So these are all really good ideas, and I like them. What I wanted to share with you specifically, what I think is important to make a session fun is interesting, would be three things, and you'll see why I chose specifically these three things, because this is also what the PIC RAT model seeks to reproduce. So I find that the learners interact. So to have a session that is interactive is always a good sign, and it avoids either too much talking time, teacher talking time, trainer talking time, lacking the proper lacking motivation on the learner side. So that will be one benefit. Also, the learners create something. So I think that's also really nice, is when you're able to see that the learners, you've let the learners work independently on a task, and see how they're able to create something with what they've learned. This is also, by the way, taken from Bloom's taxonomy, and if you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, then you know that the highest level of accomplishment is when the learner is involved in engaged in a creative, or he creates something, whether it's an artifact, it can also be problem solving. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Third and lastly, the content is fun and stimulating, right? So that's another thing. If your content looks fun, and if it's engaging, that's always a plus. That'll always make the session interesting. So let's move on to the PIC RAT, and how does this connect to the PIC RAT? Well, the PIC RAT is a grid model that's designed to help trainers and teachers use tools and into their sessions, and think how they would use. First of all, identify different tools, and secondly, decide on how they could use the tools. So there's really two important things to keep in mind when you're looking at the PIC RAT, this grid. First of all is the information on the vertical axis. So that would be the passive, interactive, and creative. So what does that mean? I'll explain to you what that means. So passive, interactive, and creative is the type of relationship that the tool has with the learner. Or more specifically, when you have present a given tool, the learners are in what type of kind of dynamic? What is the dynamic that the tool creates? Number one, is it passive? So if it's a passive tool, that means that the learners are pretty much receptive, or pretty much either listening, viewing, or reading. So they're in a passive mode. Secondly is interactive. So the tool, the learner in this with this tool, learners are able to interact with each other, or interact with the tool. Now, the idea with this grid is to encourage trainers and teachers to think about how they can move from something that's passive, an activity that is passive, to an activity that is interactive, and then creative. So what does creative mean? Well, creative is when the learner is creating something. So the tool allows the learner to create. Again, it can be an artifact. It can be a tool to express him or herself, and to also do problem solving. So the learner is engaged in a creative activity. Usually this is what we would call the production. We'd see often in production stage, if you're familiar with the 3P models, or the activation stage. So again, here, what people notice, teacher trainers notice a lot, is that at the beginning, especially for online sessions, the trainer will tend to speak a lot. That's what we notice, that the trainer will speak a lot, and essentially a lot of the activities that he will propose or she will propose will be passive. So we try to encourage switch to interactive creative. Let's look at now the RAT, so the RAT segment, which is the horizontal axis. So RAT stands for replaces, amplify, transform. Now, where the PIC was looking at the impact of the tool on the learner and how they were kind of engaged by the tool and what type of classroom dynamics or session room dynamics it created, the RAT looks at how the tool impacts the learning. So in the first instance, does the tool merely replace a face-to-face something that the teacher would do, the trainer would do in a face-to-face setting? Does the tool merely replace a tool or an object in the face-to-face setting? Does it amplify the face-to-face setting? Does it amplify the learning in comparison to the tool that merely replaces? Or does it transform the learning? So does it enable new learning outcomes? Just to give you kind of a definition, so if we look at amplify, is when the teacher's use of technology improves the practices or outcomes. So whether it be by saving the trainer time, a lot of time, whether it be to really be able to measure a more effective outcome, maybe because there can be visual aspects to this improvement, simply visual aesthetic aspects is improvement. There can also be systematic aspects to the improvement. So if you're thinking about an activity, and if the tool is really catered around the same activity but does it in a better way, that would be amplification. Let's look at now transform. So transform is when the teacher's use of technology enables a pedagogical practice. So the tool doesn't merely strengthen or improve the practice, it creates something new. So taking away the technology would eliminate that pedagogical strategy. So if you took away the tool, you wouldn't be able to have this, to do the same technology. Now, when we reflect on technology's impact on society, we can notice that there's examples of tools, inventions that really have transformed the way we do things. Well, this is the same idea applied to a learning environment. Now, I know that this is probably still very much abstract to you, so I propose that we look at some examples. So let's look at some specific example. I'll just skip this for now, although yes, so the benefits would be that you move from passive, the benefit of using the PIC RAT is that you move from a more passive mode of training to more creative and interactive via the tools. It also improves the learning, facilitates the learning, and it leads to infinite possibilities for innovation, where there would be no more excuse to say, oh, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. So here's the first example. So what I've done is I imagined a copy of the AP2 book, which many of you are familiar with. And one of the first topics of the AP2 is me and my company, where you have you learn about a French person describing his job. Now, if you wanted to look at a passive replacive tool, this will be an example of a passive replacive tool, where basically what I do is I replace the book by a PDF version. So, I mean, there's really no difference in terms of the type of material, except that obviously this is a digital version. What does it look like? If you haven't noticed if you haven't seen the PDF, so this is the module 1 of that module. So it really looks the same as the class booklet, no difference, and it's merely replacive, and it's passive because obviously here we have a reading activity, so you can't really do anything with the text. I mean, you could but a priori this would be rather passive. So in the second example, let's say that we want to move up diagonally to a tool that will be both interactive and amplifying. So whereas interactive, there'll be learners will be engaged, will be interacting with each other, maybe with a tool, and it'll be also amplifying. So I will assume that it facilitates or improves the learning outcome. So for this example, I've chosen an interactive whiteboard. An interactive whiteboard is essentially a whiteboard where learners can also interact, input data, modify data, and allow for good learning outcomes. So this is an example of a interactive whiteboard. It's called a Google Jamboard. It's available for anyone who has the Drive, the free version of Google, and it's one of the tools to anyone that has a Google account. So pretty easy to use. Here what I've done is that I had my learners, so I had this is obviously for A2 setting. So in this situation, what I had is an activity where they had to match images to the correct names, expressions. So here I would use another tool actually, which is called remote control, or I could also share this document, make it collaborative with my learners, and I would have the learner drag and drop. To make it, so there's interaction with the technology. If I wanted to make it yet even more interactive, I would have my learners work together and I would just sit back. Let me show you another example. So let's see now I want to go to the top right corner of the PIC RAT and look at an activity that is creative and transformative at the same time. So let's refresh our memories here. What does creative mean? Creative means that the learner is creating something new, is using the language. Okay, so that's he's using his or her creative skills with the language that that he or she has learned, and so doing something new with it. So transformative is an activity that, thanks to the tool, leads to new possibilities, new creative possibilities, and learning possibilities as well. So again, it's not just improving, it's not merely improving, but it's enabling a learning outcome, right? So the learning outcome actually depends on that tool. So here, what I've done is, this is an example of what I consider creative and transformative. Now, there is obviously discussion and room for interpretation, meaning that what I consider transformative, maybe for others, is not. Anyways, this tool, which is called PIC RAT, to me is kind of represents that. And so what I did here is, or what my learner did here, this is obviously in a flipped classroom setting, recorded himself, and I'll share the sound with you. Okay.
Hello, I'm Carl. I'm 40. I'm from Central Africa. I am a computer vision and data science engineer. I work for eSourcings, and my company is T10 Consulting. eSourcing provides embedded system services, and it produces.
Okay, so right, so here the learner is just practicing presentation. With this tool, there's two things that I like about it. First is that the learner could create something, could do something even more creative. For example, he could make a documentary. That would be an example of something creative. He could give a tour of his office, and that would enable this type of thing. Also, the other thing is video feedback. So this is something I like a lot. And what you can do is you send video feedback to the learner, and also you can type messages at the same time that are clearly visible, so that it's just a much more engaging way, and yeah, it can lead to a lot of creative things. I'll just look if there are any questions for the moment, so I'll answer some questions. So do we think of an activity and then apply the tool to it? Yes, right. So yes, normally what you would do is, I mean, there's essentially two ways of going about this. First of all is thinking about the activity and then deciding, well, what tools you could use following the PIC RAT model. The other option is to choose a tool and then look at what type of activities it would allow. So either looking at the activity and deciding the tool, or looking at the tool and seeing what activities. That either way really doesn't matter. Let's see. Any other questions? Is the video open to view or private? So you mean the PIC RAT video? I mean, sorry, the Flipgrid video. That's it's private, but it can also, you can add another level of security, and that's to have a password protection. So for the learners to leave a video there, they also need to have a Google account, or there's another, or Google, or I believe Microsoft account, either one. What's it called? What was the previous one called? Google Jamboard. Google Jamboard. Okay, so I'll just continue. So those are all of the examples that I wanted to show you, and so now I invite you to go ahead and click on this link that you see here, and that I've put in the chat. And with this, if you receive the document, if you're watching this recording, then you can just, if you access the this presentation, you can just click on that. This will take you onto a task to see if you've understood the PIC RAT and how to map different tools. So I'll show you. This is what it looks like. And on the left and right columns, you have the names of different tools that the trainer would be using. So the idea here is to click on the tool. We'll read it first. Click on it, and when you think you know where it would go, this is obviously, there's room for discussion here. This model is not meant to kind of dictate and determine exactly all the use of tools, because there's a lot of ubiquity. And what's more interesting is this model is meant to start valuable discussion around the meaning of a tool and also the use of the tool. So there's room for variation. This is exactly the purpose. So let's look at the first one. Learners use Google to present their favorite city's landmark. So I would let you decide, where you would put this, whether you would put it interactive, amplify, creative, transformative, interactive, whatever. So it's up to you to decide, and then just, continue and drag on the other ones. So when you finish the task, we will share the results together. Now, I'm obviously we don't have much more time, so what I suggest that we do is I will give you this link, or you can access the link, and make sure when you open it, make sure to make a copy. So very important, so we don't lose any of my original work. Make sure that you would create a copy that you can work on. So do this. I propose that you do this by yourselves, and then if you're interested, we can have another session to look at, to compare your results and kind of have this discussion about the tools. So the outcomes, what I'd like you to kind of get out of this of this specific task is if you're able to answer these two questions. So first of all, I can locate different tools in the PIC RAT map. And secondly, I can understand the difference between the different levels of PIC RAT. So, you know, even if there's some, you know, it's not always clear because that's kind of innate to this discussion anyways. What's important is you're able to set kind of a diagnosis of the tool and to really think about the different possibilities and the different modes and usage. I mean, this is really what the PIC RAT is for, and I think it goes beyond simply integrating a technology into your classroom, but it's really about using the tools for learning outcomes. So it's really you're using it for your learning, to improve your learning, to transform your learning, to make your learning creative, interactive. So, and that's exactly what my aims were today, was to show you how to how to use this tool in a creative, interactive and creative use of tools, and also to use tools that will be captivating and innovative for both you and your learners. Okay, so that'll be it for me. I just will leave you with one challenge, and this is also something if you want to do it by yourselves, and then just send me an email, and we can organize a follow-up session depending on how many people are interested. So your challenge will be to design a lesson plan on the pros and cons of teleworking. Now, again, I also have a worksheet, so if you click on that, you will be, I will show you a worksheet, which is essentially starting from the replace area of the map. Replace and passive. So the challenge here will be to try to adapt the lesson with tools that progress along the chart. So really getting a progression that's either linear, goes up and right, diagonal, goes straight, kind of like the examples I gave, or that goes straight and up. So either one. All right, so I hope that this has been helpful to you, and I very much look forward from hearing about your experiences with the tool. Don't hesitate to send me an email if you have questions, and I will send you this presentation where you have also more examples here. So thank you very much for coming today, and see you another time. Bye.